A white-hot flash of fur moved in for the kill. I could see the raw ferocity in their eyes as they constructed a hungry, murderous expression. Before I could even raise my arms to defend myself, a sharp, white-hot pain exploded in my ribs. A set of jagged teeth clenched down on my abdomen, causing warm blood to instantly ooze out of the puncture wounds. A fraction of a second, I felt something heavy, solid ram its entire body into my stomach. A sheer kinetic force launched me backwards, pushing me clean off the edge of the sheer cliff. The roaring rush of heavy waterfalls completely masked my yelp of surprise as I plummeted downward, heading straight into the churning lake bed below. Splash! The impact was deafening. I swore as a desperate trail of oxygen bubbles escaped my mouth. The frigid, icy waters immediately engulfed me, and a heavy, violent undertow clinged my semi-conscious body, dragged me into the dark depths. I could still hear the muffled roar of the world above, and see distorted shapes shifting through the surface, but I didn't have enough oxygen or strength to make sense of what they were. My vision began to dim. Just as the darkness started to take over, I felt the powerful grip latch onto my shirt collar. With little to no effort at all, the force pulled me upward, dragging my waterlogged body through the current and straight onto the rocky shore. A thick blanket of temporary blindness clouded my vision as I lay gasping in the mud, remaining in an altered state of absolute shock, but something warm and visceral seemed to bring me back to reality. It was the heat of a heavy breath followed by the rough, rhythmic licking of a soft tongue reaching across my face. I blinked against the moisture scrunching my nose as I inhaled the unfamiliar musk. Opening one eye, I slowly began to claw my way back to consciousness. It wasn't until I was fully alert that I'd finally realized what exactly happened. I glanced up at the free-falling water pouring out of the large, gaping cavern above. From this angle, the jagged rocky formation surrounded the falls gave an eerie, unmistakable illusion of a massive wolf's head drooling into the lake. I'd been rescued by a wild wolf once again. I looked around and swallowed hard. A massive snow-white paw was resting just inches away from my foot. I smiled gratefully up at the extremely large lupine creature, standing approximately the size of a horse. The white wolf looked around, testing the mountain air, before padding over to the water's edge for a drink. Her large, thick tail swayed like a heavy pendulum against her muscular hindquarters. Lapping at the water, she quickly lifted her head, her piercing golden eyes staring directly at me before lowering her muzzle for another drink. The white wolf instantly perked her ears and let out a soft, low whine as I lifted my soaked shirt to inspect the damage. Fresh crimson blood was still flowing freely from my deep puncture wounds inflicted by the cliffside attacker. The wolf sniffed the air, catching the scent of my blood, which instantly set her off. She threw her head back, unleashing a long and mournful howl that echoed off the cavern walls. Up at the top of the cliff, a sequence of large black figures appeared against the skyline, looking down at us for a silent moment before turning back to head back into the depths of the forest. A large white wolf turned her head back toward me. She padded directly over to my location, lowering her massive head and began affectionately rubbing her snout against my chest. She gave small, vibrating growls of pure pleasure as she continued to nudge me, showing me an overwhelming display of animal affection. Flexing my stiff, frozen fingers, I offered an open hand to her. The lupine creature immediately commenced to lick my fingers, pressing her heavy forehead firmly into my palm. I smiled to the pain, gently wrapping her wet, snow-white coat. It wasn't long before a sudden tickle hit my nose. I turned my head and sneezed. The wolf perked her ears instantly, tilting her head to the side as she watched me with curious, highly intelligent golden eyes. I sneezed a second time. This time she stood up, completely towering over me, like a massive shadow engulfing my pale skin. Gently, she knelt down on her front legs, whining softly as she nudged her paw on my leg. I sneezed a third time, the chill of the wet clothes finally getting to me, and she let a small, deep, resonating bark. I looked into the face of the giant wolf as she whined again, lowering her head close to my cheek, give me a lick of concern. Satisfied, she rested her heavy head directly across my lap. Her thick, dense fur coat covered my shaking legs like a massive insulating blanket. I smiled at her, tracing the line of her jaw, and looked up at the sky. Above us, heavy gray clouds completely shrouded the morning sun as thick, foggy haze drifted into view, blanketing out the canyon.
So I'll get out of here, I murmured.
My voice raspy. The wolf instantly stood up and barked, wagging her tail briskly in approval. She gave me one more quick lick on the cheek, and then, carefully wrapping her jaws around my forearm, she gently and precisely pulled me up onto my feet. I patted her massive snow-white side. She looked back at me, her ears perked. Whining impatiently, she tilted her head, suddenly lifting one of her muscular hind legs to vigorously scratch at her ear before settling it back down into the dirt. I stood there in confusion for a moment, staring at her before the realization of what she was implying hit me. The wolf sat back slightly on her haunches. I walked behind her, watching her heavy tail sway with pure excitement. Carefully, I stepped up right against her hindquarters. As if sensing my movement, she lifted her hind leg slightly, offering me a better foothold to help me achieve a better mount. Once I was situated, I slid forward closer to the front of her spine and sat there for a moment, adjusting my weight. It was a completely bizarre, surreal feeling to be sitting on the back of a giant wolf. Her slender, muscular body rippled beneath me, a riveting sensation of pure power. Her dense, thick fur completely buried my thighs, as my feet hung loosely behind her powerful front legs. She shook her large pelt, rattling her fur, and panted with excitement. Glancing around the canyon, she sniffed the damp ground once last time before stealthily heading back into the dense forest. Sat perfectly still upon the back of the wolf, only moving my hands to gently pet her soft, pristine fur. The rhythmic sound of her soft panting echoed through the quiet, overgrown underbrush. She moved with impossible grace, carefully stepping over massive fallen logs and forest debris, slinking her massive frame effortlessly through the thick brush. Suddenly, her posture shifted. She crouched low into a distinct hunting pose, her sharp shoulder blades raising high through the white pelt with every step. She stopped dead in her tracks, sniffing the air as her ears twitched forward. I could feel her hackles raise slightly beneath my thighs as she let out a low, vibrating, warning snarl. I couldn't see what was going on from my position, but I could instantly sense a suffocating layer of tension thick in the air.